Right, register.
Right, welcome everybody to this afternoon's strategic planning. If I can just remind you to put your phones on silent or on vibrate, please. Membership of the committee today, we're all as printed. Minutes of the previous meeting, can we pass those as a true record? Thank you. Right, declarations and interests in lobbying. If I start with Councillor Sokol.
None, Chair.
Councillor Crook.
None, Chair.
Councillor Pattison.
None, Chair.
Councillor Pinnock.
None, Chair.
Councillor Thompson.
None, Chair.
Councillor Armour.
None, sir.
And myself, none. This is a public meeting. We are live on webcast, so you can watch it all back later if you want to. 5, any public questions?
No questions, Chair.
6, any deputations or petitions?
No deputations or petitions, Chair.
We took one site visit this morning, which land that we've been to before at Lady Anne Road at Sootill. Next, item 8, planning applications. We're going on to planning application 2021-94280, and this is for the erection of 65 dwellings at Lady Anne Road, Sootill, Batley, and it's Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Good day, members. My name is Nick Hurst, case officer for this application, which seeks full planning permission for the erection of 65 dwellings with associated enabling works. The site is situated between Lady Anne Road to the east and Primrose Hill to the west. Howley Street and a public right-of-way is to the north. The site is greenfield land with a topography that slopes downwards to the east. Along the site's east boundary, adjacent to Lady Anne Road and some of the commercial units to the northeast, is Howley Beck. The area is predominantly residential, although a grouping of commercial units is located immediately to the northeast of the site. The site is allocated for housing in the local plan with an indicative capacity of 97 dwellings. The area in green is in the centre of the site is a group tree preservation order. This image was taken from Lady Anne Road and is looking into approximately the centre of the site. The beck is just on the other side of the metal railing, and the trees protected by the TPO can be seen within the centre of the frame, and the commercial units just off to the right. This image, again taken from Lady Anne Road, shows the relationship of the site to the existing properties on Primrose Hill, just along the rear. Just on the ridgeline there. This final image shows the typical arrangement of properties on Lady Anne Road, which is predominantly terrace road that faces onto the site. This is the layout plan for the proposal. Access would be formed from Lady Anne Road via a new bridge over Howley Beck. The topography has been a significant constraint for the development. The layout largely follows existing contours and is considered a logical response to the irregular shape and topography of the site. The tree preservation order in the centre of the site would be retained and incorporated into the extensive areas of public open space. Other features include a play area to the front of the site, where the pointer is now, and connections to the public right-of-way to the north, just there. To address the site's challenging topography without resorting to extensive retaining walls, the proposed dwellings are to be split level. This will allow the level changes to be incorporated within the dwellings. However, as the appearance of 3-storey dwellings in this location was considered a cause for concern, the units have been designed with asymmetrical roofs to ensure they appear as 2-storey from both their front and rears. As a result, the scaling massing of the dwellings would not appear out of keeping with the area. This slide shows examples of the proposed unit types. The appearance of existing dwellings in the area are varied, and by virtue of the separation distance and open space to the front, the site is somewhat visually detached from the existing built environment. Despite this, consideration has been given to reflecting local vernacular features, and overall the development is considered attractive. Materials include artificial stone frontages and brick side and rear, although a condition has been recommended requiring natural stone frontages on the units most visible from Lady Anne Road. This slide shows just some typical street scene elevations in and around the site. And finally, an indicative 3D image looking at the development from the south, just off Lady Anne Road. So, for context, you've got the park area there and the units fronting on, most of which are the ones intended to be faced in stone via condition. So, through you, Chair, I'll now invite Chris Dowse from Kirklees Highways to provide comments on the application.
Right, thanks, Nick. Members. The site is accessed from Lady Anne Road by a single point of access, which takes the form of a simple priority junction. As members will have seen this morning, parking is widespread on Lady Anne Road, and the junction has been designed to ensure that a refuse vehicle can enter and exit the site while parking is still present on the opposite side of the road. So in other words, the junction radii have been increased to allow those turning manoeuvres to take place. Internally, it's a combination of a traditional estate road, shared space with private drives, and it incorporates service vehicle turning. The design is designed to adoptable standards and will be suitable for taking forward for adoption if required. Parking is broadly in line with the adopted SPD, including formalised visitors parking. The proposal also includes junction improvements at the Lady Anne Road, Suthill Lane junction, to remedy deficiencies in visibility, and the junction will now be improved to accommodate visibility of 2.4 by 43 in both directions. From a highway point of view, the traffic generated by the development, it is considered can be accommodated in the local highway network and will not result in a severe impact on the operation of the highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The report before members outlines the officer's full assessment of the proposal. In summary, the proposal seeks a residential development on a housing allocation. The local plan did have an indicative capacity of 97, which the proposal would be notably below. However, the local plan's indicative figures were calculated via high-level assessment in using a target density of 35 dwellings per hectare. However, 35 dwellings per hectare should only be sought where appropriate, and securing an appropriate density has been considered in depth throughout this application. Given the constraints of the site, principally the topography and protected trees, which make securing an appropriate design at a higher density difficult, it is considered reasonable and necessary to support a lower density in this case, with the proposal representing 23 dwellings per hectare. Therefore, officers are satisfied that the proposal represents an effective and efficient use of a housing allocation. Regarding the design, the layout and appearance of the units are considered attractive and would secure a high standard of amenity for future occupiers without harming the amenity of neighbouring residents. Separation distances to existing neighbouring properties would meet or exceed the expectations of the Council's design guide, and there are no concerns over impacts upon existing residents' amenities. Likewise, the development would secure a high standard of amenity for future occupiers. The proposal would not prejudice the safe and effective operation of the highway, as detailed by the Highways Officer. It must be noted that part of the site is technically within Flood Zone 3. However, this is caused by a bund that is understood to have been artificially made. The bund redirects floodwater into the site and results in the Flood Zone 3 designation. Engineering works are proposed to remove the bund that will result in no dwelling being in the equivalent of Flood Zone 3. Furthermore, as part of those works, additional flood storage would be provided on site, reducing flood risk elsewhere. The proposal has been through the Council's viability review process, and viability has been proven to be an issue for the site. Therefore, a full policy compliant suite of planning contributions cannot be secured. To summarise the details contained within the report and recommendation, officers are of the opinion that a fair and reasonable suite of contributions has been agreed to help mitigate the impacts of the proposal. As such, the recommended affordable housing provision is 5 first homes, as opposed to 13 of varied tenure. However, all of the financial contributions, such as education and net gain, have been secured. The Section 106 would be subject to a review mechanism should a windfall profit above that anticipated be made by the developer. 120 representations and 3 petitions have been received in response to the 3 public representation periods that this application has been subject to. Officers are satisfied that all of the material considerations raised have been considered and are addressed within the report. Officers therefore recommend approval of the application, subject to securing of the Section 106 agreement and condition as set out within the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
We've got some speakers now. First speaker were due to be Councillor Zaman, but due to a grievance in a death in a family, she can't make it. We're also due to have another councillor come to speak. Something's happened there this morning. So, Sheila, one of our officers, is going to read the statement out for you.
This representation is made on behalf of all Batley East councillors, including Councillor Docrat and Councillor Adams-Aman. They have both already made written objections to the planning department. We are all disappointed that this application has risen once again with only minor changes and has 100 objections listed. We would like to strongly object to this planning application as we believe it is not suited to this area due to several reasons we have already informed the Planning Office, and some I will share with you now. Some of the fundamental issues this application will have on the residents around Lady Anne Road are that the proposed development is a flood risk area, and whilst proposals appear to be addressing the issue, there are strong grounds to challenge the effectiveness and adequacy of the mitigations proposed. Is the land even suitable for housing, given that the council has graded it a 3/4 for flooding, and the beck is frequently reported as flooding at times of persistent rainfall? In our view, the land is clearly not suitable for housing. It's the last open space in Suthill and has a public footpath running through it, and it needs to be maintained so that the residents can move around the area on foot. The other major issue here is let's not con the buyers, have insurance companies be consulted on whether these homes are likely to be insured and that the premiums are comparable to other similar dwellings in the locality. I believe not. The proposed development using Marshall stone will be out of character. Currently, the properties in the surrounding area around Primrose Hill and Lady Anne Road are made of stone. The layout of the proposed scheme appears an overdevelopment of the site, with blocks of semi-detached dwellings being crammed in tightly, leaving very little space in between. Lady Anne Road is a bus route and has been reported that buses and emergency vehicles have had major problems navigating around the area due to on-road parking and congestion. Suthill Lane is a primary artery into Batley, severely congested at the best of times. This development will undoubtedly have a major adverse impact. More consideration is required regarding traffic management. Adding another 150 plus cars to the surrounding roads will require the infrastructure to be updated. This is something that I have been constantly receiving complaints about, and I have constantly raised with the Council's Highways Department. This application will have a massive detrimental effect on the area. 67 additional homes will make the highly overpopulated area unbearable. The traffic report says that no real impact will be felt at the junction of Lady Anne Road and Suthill Lane. We disagree with this, as we have personally experienced this junction is a nightmare to get out of and can take 20 minutes or more at peak times. The residents are continuously complaining about speeding traffic and congestion on this road. Drivers already take shortcuts into Broomsdale Road and Grace Leather Lane to avoid long waiting times in extremely long traffic queues, ending up on Lady Anne Road, creating further gridlocks trying to adjoin the busy Suthill Lane. There is also a main bus route for Service 212, which will be greatly affected. The vital bus service struggles to operate around Lady Anne due to the traffic, parked cars on a narrow street. On top of all this, there are businesses at the end of Lady Anne Road and lorries deliver on a daily business to business as well, adding to the existing traffic problem. This housing development will put further strain on the existing infrastructure, i.e. schools, madrasas, doctors, dentists, etc., which would be harmful to the quality of life currently enjoyed by the community. Impact on existing infrastructure and services. Lady Anne Road simply cannot cope with a potential increase of 130 cars based on 2 cars per household. There is a natural spring which has not been considered. It is also used for leisurely walks and picnics. Residents feel it is their oasis of nature and feel it will destroy the beautiful view and environment. Residents living on Primrose Hill only get sunlight on a morning from the rear of their properties facing the proposed development because of the railway banking to the front. Yet the proposal is for 3-storey houses, and this will have a serious effect on their health and mental well-being. I note from some of the plans that the protected trees appear to have disappeared and have been replaced by houses. Other plans show the TPO'd trees. The roots of the TPO'd trees would also be in danger by various plots. There have also been 2 accidents not mentioned in the report that have occurred on Lady Anne Road. More consideration is required regarding traffic management. I urge the committee to refuse this application for the above reasons. The applicant is not addressing the requirements of the surrounding area, the views and feelings of the residents, or the flooding and other issues relating to this plot of land. I recognise the need for more housing, but unfortunately this site is not appropriate for the application before us. The developer has not recognised the strength of feeling in the community and the negative physical, mental and emotional impact it is having on the residents.
Right, next speaker is Stephen Potter, who's got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. This development will destroy the last waterhole meadow in Batley. The land here supports an amazing diversity of flora and fauna, including amphibia, mammalia, many species of birds and insects, especially butterflies and bees, which, as the councillors know, are in serious decline and in many areas endangered. The nighttime insects provide food for the local bat population. A proper ecological survey would be needed to determine just exactly what will be irreparably lost should this habitat be wiped out. A true ecological disaster in the making. This proposal will, at the lowest estimate, generate a minimum 120 cars, and for these cars to access Sootill Lane, 2 options exist: Lady Anne Road and Grace Leather Lane. The former is, to all intents, a single carriageway road because of residents being forced to park on the road, and has a very nasty junction with Sootill Lane, this being the main road into Batley. Grace Leather Lane runs through the Sootill housing estate, and vehicle-wise it is already at saturation point, and this will be the preferred way for the extra cars to access Sootill Lane, and thereby exponentially increasing the risk of injury or worse to people in this area. Plus the fact that this is on the bus route into Batley, which frequently cannot get through because of parked cars. Councillor Habidan, Zaman Habidan that is, has done her best to keep this bus route open by having yellow lines laid down. Arriva buses are looking for any excuse to abolish this service, which is a vital lifeline for our old and infirm to access doctors, hospitals at Dewsbury, Wakefield and Pontefract. Lastly, the local residents are going to suffer not only a depreciation on the price of their property, but their personal well-being will suffer as well because of the extra noise, more nighttime traffic plus added light pollution, and the great danger posed by the persons by this extra traffic. I entreat and I plead with the council to reject this application. Thank you.
Oh. Next speaker is Lee Mitchell. You've got 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm a technical manager for D Noble Limited. We are a small house builder based in Castleford. The development site is allocated for residential housing. D Noble Limited wants to provide much needed housing where it's so desperately needed in Kirklees. We've worked with the council over a number of years to get the application to its current best possible position. It's the longest running application we've ever had in our company's history. 7 years, I believe. We have reservations about the financial viability of the development with regards to potential extensive remediation. Groundworks are significantly, and we've not done an intrusive survey that actually considers the full depth of the ground conditions. So we could end up spending a significant amount more money than we have currently estimated. The site is on a steep slope. We're going to need to do a great deal of cut and fill will be required to accommodate the level changes, and lots of retaining structure will be required within the houses. We can't get away from this. It's not a flat site, an easy site for us to build at all as a builder. Extra traffic associated with the development will increase vehicle numbers. We accept that. We believe this will be marginal, and these amounts will in no way be relatively excessive, if even noticeable, outside of peak period times. Junction improvement works are planned as part of the development at Lady Anne Road and Suthill Lane to ease matters. Approximately 1/3 of the site will remain and will not be built on for houses or their curtilage, and therefore retaining the landscaping and the existing trees that are there. The existing Howley Beck will be retained along with the existing natural habitats. New paths will be provided adjacent to the Beck, providing educational nature walks if desired. We will be providing, D Noble, financially contributing affordable homes, new first homes for people in Kirklees. We're going to be providing £71,000 in terms for education, public open space on site, £63,000. On-site children's play area and an orchard that we'll be paying for. Net gain will be paying £180,000 to contribute. We'll be paying sustainable travel bus stops, sustainable bus stop improvements, sustainable public right-of-way in the region of about £53,000 and a travel plan for 10k. We appreciate the flood mitigation issues, yes, and we believe the design will mitigate that. We think the design is in keeping with the best it possibly can be with the existing area. It's not a lucrative development for us, this, to construct, and it's got significant technical challenges to overcome, and we want to be there. We are craftspeople and we have morals, so we have to make a profit, so we've got the next site to go to and we have to pay wages, but we have to survive. We're not solely a profit-led company. We want to do good here and we want to improve the built environment for future generations to come. Thank you.
Right, members, it's over to you. Mark, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a question that had been raised, reference to the flooding risk between levels of 3 and 4. You'll have to excuse my ignorance, but can somebody explain how bad or indifferent that is as far as the suitability for building on, please?
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Paul Foundell, and I am the lead for the lead local flood authority for Kirklees Council. Nick, if you want to get a map up which shows the flood zones, because I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding. There is no flood zone 4 for a start off, so if we can get the map up, I'll run it through you. This application has been in quite a few times. When it first came in, I think it was 2016-17, the modelling for this site was the national flood model, which was quite basic in comparison to what we have today. What you have with flood modelling is that it splits it into flood zone 1, which is your white area, which is basically everything else. Home Moss will be in flood zone 1. And the highest parts of Kirklees are in flood zone 1. The darker colour is flood zone 3, and the lighter sort of cyan colour is flood zone 2. Now, the assigned return periods to this, flood zone 3 is anything within a 1 in 100 year storm event. That's a little bit misleading because it's based on older calculations. So what we do is we add climate change to it as part of a flood risk assessment for the site. Now, in terms of allocations in the local plan, we would aim to have anything in a site allocated for housing in the flood zone 1, the safe area. And what we do for this site, if it is in the local plan, is what we call a sequential approach. So in places like Hull, where most of the city's coloured blue, they don't have a choice for them to provide their housing. They've got to sort of like have a risk but mitigate it. What we're interested in Kirklees is avoiding risk, which is why you'll find all the houses on this site are allocated in flood zone 1 in line with national planning policy. So as far as we're concerned, due diligence has been done. You will notice a light blue line at the northern end coming into sight with a gap in between. Having walked the site, that appears to be some kind of anomaly where somebody's dug a trench for whatever reason years ago and created a bund. I don't know why, because it's not defending anything. It's simply, I have no problem with that being removed, and that light blue line will move to the right and merge with the rest. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the residents actually back in 2017, because when the national flood model was there, they were able to provide photographs from way back, which certainly before the Second World War, probably closer to the First World War, and obviously the terrace houses are the same. So you could see where it actually does flood on the road. If we come down to the houses, Nick, you'll see that it does spill out into the road. Nobles have moved the access to where flood zone 1 is, so it's safe access and egress. Those that remember the Granny Lane application in Murfield will say that the access was actually in one of the flood zones, although not very deep, and the inspector would pass that. That's not to say that we wouldn't strive to get the best and safest possible outcome for this site, and that has been achieved. We'll actually go a little bit further than this, because what also, apart from the residents' photographs, we've got testimonies from residents who phoned in previously for certain service requests to report flooding, and that flooding's clear that it does go into the road from curb to curb, as it was described on 2 occasions. It was particularly bad in 2007-8, which is when Yorkshire had the floods. You can remember people in Hull being out of the houses for 2 years, and that event was what generated a lot of legislation and brought the council in to look at flood risk in greater detail. We've actually got, regardless of whether this development goes ahead, we are working with Network Rail as the watercourse goes down to the south, just off picture. It goes into a culvert and goes underneath the railway line. If that screen blocked, the modelling shows that it would actually flood as it's shown there, with all the houses safe, but it would overflow and go down the underpass. So the road at that end lifts up, but the underpass goes under at an angle. So if the best way of describing it is, if you look at the dark area, which is described as 1 in 100, and then look at the outline for the light blue, which is 1 in 1,000, it shows you that there's hardly any difference, and that's due to the steepness of the site. So if you did get more flooding, it cannot get wider. It could only get deeper. So there's, you know, where the houses are, we're not even talking, we're building an arcade. It's just not going to happen. So as far as I'm concerned, due diligence has taken place. They've performed a sequential approach in line with our policies. They've put all the houses in flood zone 1. There's no such thing as flood zone 4. And this development is relatively safe, therefore.
Thanks, Paul. Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've been on the site visit this morning and look around the site, and I heard the statement made by the local ward councillor raising their concern and the speaker on here. But the thing is, this application, I think 3 times have been refused before, and this is the 4th time is coming up. I think the officer have made a very good negotiation with the developer, bringing down the number of the housing they are dwelling from 84 to 71, then down to now 65. We got a good mixture of houses. I think it's 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, and 5 bedroom. Very rarely we get 5 bedroom to meet the needs of the large family. I think this mixture will meet the demand of the local community there. I know there is a road in on top, Lady Anne Road with the junction Suter. There is a bit narrow. Sight line need to be improved. I heard from officers there might be TRO. They do the double yellow line or whatever to improve the sight line on top there. And Section 106 contribution, I think it's very reasonable. The children play area. We got a sustainable travel bus pass, sustainable travel bus stop, and Councillor Andrew Pinnick always asks some good contribution for the transport, from the transport. That's they meet the demands of theirs. And I think the site is already on the local plans, yeah? And I feel myself, if we go against the officer recommendation today, I think it's very hard, yeah, for me to vote on there, yeah? And if this application go to the appeal, I'm sure the developer will get their appeal through there. Thank you. Listen to other members.
Thanks, Chair. There was one question that I wanted to ask planning officers about, and I recognise that the developer doesn't acknowledge the analysis done by Aspinall Verde about viability and so forth. But given that we probably place some confidence in that analysis by Aspinall Verde, I wondered why we've proposed that the 5 affordable units be changed to first homes, given that the projected outcome then is a 19.53% profit margin, almost right at the top of the approved profit range, and given that, you know, there's a desperate need for affordable homes within our borough. Thanks.
Through you, Chair. Aspinall Verde, we agree with what they've done. They have done the assessment on the values, on the costs. It's not their position to conclude what is an acceptable profit level. That is ultimately up for the decision makers. We make a recommendation, but it is up to you. They have recommended 17.5, but that's a fairly standard approach to take. This is not a standard site. There are risks associated with it. The government guidance is between 15 and 20. 15 is a safe site where you know you can get on, build them, get off. This is not that site. As the applicant set out, there are constraints on there. There is substantial unknown groundwork still to take place. It's not the strongest market area. There is addressing the river and other issues that make this overall a risky development. It's one of the riskier ones that we've seen in a while. So that's why, on balance, we consider it more reasonable to head towards that 19.5% profit margin in this case, and that is what the applicant was willing to agree to. We did try and get it lower. We have spent a long time, as the application has been in for a long time, negotiating on this, and this is a package we finally feel comfortable to submit to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Can I ask a separate question? Acknowledge your explanation of why we've changed that proposal there. I noticed that one of the objections from ward councillors was around a change from natural stone to reconstructed stone. And it's something that I tend to agree with. The reconstructed stone looks in keeping when it's new, but some of the reconstructed stone types weather very differently to natural stone, so I wondered if there was a possibility of us changing that condition to propose that we stick with natural stone. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, there is a condition on at the moment that requires all the units that are basically visible from Lady Anne Road to be natural stone. If you, I can get the site plan up, but if you remember, there was the wider section and then the slimmer section behind the commercial units. As they won't be visible from outside the site, on balance, we can accept the use of artificial stone there. The units to the front from Lady Anne Road, where they are more visible in that stone area, then we have got a condition to secure that. It does need to be remembered that stone does have a higher price tag with it, so it will have further implications if we insist on even more stone elsewhere. Thank you, Chair.
Can I come back, Chair? Yeah, I mean, given that we are projecting a nearly 20% profit margin, I do think we might be able to condition the use of natural stone throughout the site, and it's fair enough it's not visible from outside, but it'll still be visible from inside the new estate, so it would still add to the quality of the ongoing housing. That would be my proposal if others were in agreement anyway.
Thank you, Chair. Now then, this site has been around for quite a long time and has gone through several iterations, the most significant of which, it seems to me, is that if you look at the local plan, you will see that this site has a proposed capacity of 97 houses. And we've for this application, we've lost about a third of that. I think at least partly because there's quite a large part of the site that's not going to be built on, and which is being set aside for partly recreation, but also because of the existence of flood zone 2 or 3, depending on where you are. I'd just like to ask a question about flooding, which did come up on the bus, and that is there any chance that the drainage of the beck could be improved if this bund was removed? You know, it was said that to some extent caused water to go to places that it probably wouldn't have done had that not been there, had the beck just been allowed to take its natural course. And then also taking into account the size of the culvert under the railway line. This is on the other side, of course. That could cause an obstruction and therefore some ponding back of water that couldn't get through the culvert. Now, far be it from me to suggest that the culvert's enlarged in order to stop that happening, but I'd just like to know what your observations are on those various points. I'll go on to other things after that.
Yeah, through you, Chair. In terms of the bund, it's not where the beck currently flows. The beck is I don't know if you can get the plan back up, as is the line. It holds the line of the river. It holds the line of its embankments, and would in some flood incidents the flow just becomes wider. What that is showing is a difference between when I talked about the National General Model, which was less sophisticated, that didn't show that bund. I just got very loud there, sorry. This one employs not just an estimate of where water would flood to, but what happens as it runs over land, and that's why it's picked up that. So it's suggesting that the beck outside of the site to the north may escape into the site and go down two routes, which is the line of the beck and then that light blue line, which is the 1 in 1,000. And it really is, it is some sort, somebody's had a mess about with a digger. That's simple as that, that's all I can think of. If you remove basically that white space would be filled and that blue line would disappear. In all the sites that I look at, I think that's just an easy decision to make, if I'm honest. With regards to the culvert downstream, you're probably better off talking about the trash screen that protects it, because trash screens are a necessary evil in one way. They are there to stop large objects going down and lodging underneath railways and costing us tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds to dig out, but also they catch small stuff and have to be cleared regularly. The trash screen that's there at the moment it's okay, but it doesn't quite meet modern designs, which is why we're working with Network Rail to try and get some funding to, independent of this application, to increase it. But as I said before, the modelling that we've done subsequent to this through JBA, who were one of the leaders in modelling in the country, shows it going down the water escaping and going down the underpass. So if you had an overland flow, it still goes in that direction and not backing up. It'll back up to a certain extent, but only from what you can see there. And I'll just reiterate, the difference between the light blue and the dark blue is negligible, which tells you that it cannot get any worse. But otherwise, you'd have a large proportion of the light blue, so a difference between the 1 in 100 and 1 in 1,000. It's saying it's basically the same. Does that answer your question?
Oh, thank you. That's really very helpful, and I think will, I hope, give some comfort to people who are concerned about this issue, because there's nothing worse than having a site where flooding becomes a problem later on in the course of the development, and that it wasn't thought about. There's one not very far from us that's a bit like that. But anyway, the other point I was going to ask about was the archaeological issue. And I'm sure I read somewhere in here that there should be a condition which suggests that, and it's no more than a suggestion, that there may be archaeological remains of significance under the site. And I just want to make sure that we've got a condition that will allow for that happening in the course of development. And I've just looked through the conditions and I can't see one that specifically deals with that. I mean, otherwise, because this is an allocated site, the presumption, I would have said, is that we grant permission unless we can find reasons that are so overwhelming that they negate all of that. And of course, this will have been through the the planning inspector's examination to decide whether it's a suitable site or not. So I would assume that we're going to grant permission because we've got a lot of the issues that we're concerned about have been overcome. I'd just like just an answer on the archaeological.
Through you, Chair. My understanding recollection is that there was concerns from West Yorkshire Archaeological Advice Service in the past in the other applications. As part of those several applications, those survey work was undertaken and did conclude that there was not any interest. So if you look at the planning history, you can see it's a reason for refusal on the very first one from 2017, but even by the next application in 2019, it has fallen off as a reason for refusal, so it has been addressed during the evolution of the various applications.
Sorry, Chair, but can I just make sure that if anything were to emerge during the course of development, then something can be done about that if that happens.
Through you, Chair. If members are so inclined, yes, a condition can be put on requiring cessation of work and appropriate watching brief kind of investigations should something be found during it. But I'd refer to the West Yorkshire Archaeological Advice Service's last comments where they said they were broadly happy, but a protective condition could be put on if minded. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, sorry, this wasn't my point, but just to come back, because it does say on current comments from West Yorkshire Archaeology Advice Service that should planning permission be granted, a pre-commencement archaeological evaluation should take place, followed by any further archaeological works with the recommended condition provided. I mean, is that what you're saying?
No, sincere apologies, that was an error on my behalf,
Oh.
so that can be picked up and added in.
Right. Oh, well, okay. No, I'll start my
Speech.
yeah, I'll start my comment somewhere else. No, I will thank officers for the amount of work that they must have put in to basically renegotiating these old schemes and coming up with a much better scheme. I mean, I certainly do remember the previous schemes, and it was far too squashed in and ugly, and well, all the reasons why we refused it before were there. So I will commend the work that has been put in on this latest application and to come to a relative, well, if you look at all the statutory and non-statutory comments, I mean, they all are happy to agree with it, with the occasional conditions, such as the one that we've just picked up. And I think, given it is a difficult site to develop, and I do think the Section 106 agreement is probably quite a good one, given that. And there's still a few caveats around that. But, and also I am pleased to see a couple of other things. I mean, there are 4 and 5 bedroom houses in there, and I may be wrong, but I'm making an assumption that most of the housing in that area is smaller housing, and a few 4 or 5 bedroom houses will be very welcomed by the local community. So I'm making an assumption there, but it's good to see that anyway. But also alongside that there's no permitted, one of the conditions is to remove public permitted development rights. So that these houses can't be, the 3-bedroom houses can't be turned into 4 or 5-bedroom houses, negating all that good work that you've done in terms of the design of the site. So just a couple of questions on then the conditions. Well, one question really, and I'm not quite, I mean, as ever, these conditions are not fully described, of course, but submission of construction environmental management plan. I mean, the one thing I am worried about is that during construction, the BEC, I mean, we have heard that following development, the BEC could be, or hopefully will be improved. in many different ways, and even possibly water voles will come back. But during development, I'm really worried about how, I think as one of the local councillors said, how is construction work, vehicles, etc., going to get across the beck? What is the construction management plan going to take into account not allowing the beck to get bunged up just during the construction phase? Because that would be horrendous if it did. So I'd like to know, basically, that construction management plan will include efforts to really make sure that beck is protected and improved.
Through you, Chair, there's actually two conditions for management plans. There is the one you've just referred to, Condition 12, Construction Environmental Management Plan, and that typically looks at traffic movements, dust, pollution, that kind of thing. So as part of that, we will be looking to make sure there's no silty water or anything like that going in. There is also a second construction ecological management plan, biodiversity, and condition 29, which is dedicated to protecting animals through the construction phase. So there are methods that we expect the applicant to go into there to again, and that's not just potential voles, it'll also be any other species in the area. Thank you.
Well, okay, having heard all that, I mean, I'm happy to approve the officer's recommendations or move the officer's recommendation.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to pick up a point that Councillor Crook raised, and that's about artificial stone in parts of the site. Now, yes, the quality of artificial stone varies greatly from maker to maker, but I don't like it. I think it's very much a substandard facing when compared with natural stone. Given that the larger, looking at the plans anyway, the larger part of the development will be faced with natural stone anyway, that's been agreed. I think it's just penny pinching to leave a minor part faced with unnatural stone, artificial stone. So I would like to see this extended to be natural stone throughout the site, which I'm sure is what Councillor Crook was saying. Thank you.
Before we go to a vote, we have got a question to ask the developer.
Thank you, Chair. Very simply, would you be able to answer the committee's wish there? Sorry, Councillor Crook's wish and Councillor Armour's wish for the proposal to be natural stone throughout. Would you like to give a little bit of explanation about why the proposal is what it is? I think the committee would like to hear on that matter. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've been through a full viability process, and the comment was about penny pinching. It's not a penny pinching exercise, it's a viability process, and we do need to make sure that we've got an economical development. I think it would be more prudent for it to be conditioned so that it can be agreed down the line. It's not fundamental, we're not saying no, it just opens it up for discussion down the line. In preference, that the facing would be natural stone throughout, but we know that the costs are rising by the day for natural stone, so we can't be held to that at the minute. If the price of stone fluctuates even more, then it does make things uneconomical for us. But I would suggest that it's conditioned and agreed down the line, if that's suitable.
Thank you, Chair. I wish I could find it now, but I'm sure I read somewhere that in common with quite a lot of houses in our area, stone was used on the front of houses, but brick on the sides and the back. I mean, is that a better option in terms of using brick rather than artificial stone? Because you know, it's a perfectly well used technique in this local area.
Through you, Chair, just for the avoidance of doubt, are you suggesting that the development be wholly brick? Oh.
No, sorry. It is quite common to see. In fact, I think there are probably some houses further up Sootill Lane that are like that, where you have stone on the front elevation, but the sides and the back are brick.
That is what is proposed currently already.
Right, that's what I thought. That's what
Yes,
I thought.
sorry, yeah. So at the moment, all front elevations are proposed as stone, artificial, but with a condition for a certain proportion of natural. But all side and rear elevations are currently proposed as red brick, not brick.
No, that's
Forgive me, Chair, I'm not exactly sure where we're at, because I think it's been proposed and seconded, but if there's an option to propose that we go along with officer recommendations but change condition 3 so that all stone would be natural stone, that would be something I'd like to propose. I don't know how it works now. We'd have to vote on the first proposal, wouldn't we, and then...
Well, I've forgotten that bit.
We haven't taken a vote yet.
So, Chair, you're voting on the officer recommendation subject to the amendment of condition 3 to require all properties to be fronted in natural stone, and also an additional condition in respect to the archaeological evaluation. Is that right, Nick?
Through you, Chair, I'll just comment. In the report, I did correctly kind of point out West Yorkshire Archaeological Advice's comments. It was just missed off on the condition. So, yes, there should be a condition there. Apologies for that and my error in recollection.
So it's the officer recommendation plus an amendment to condition 3 and an additional condition. So, voting, Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Crook?
For.
Councillor Pattison?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Thompson?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Hall? For. That's carried, Chair, unanimous.
Thank you. Next item is item 10. This is definitive map modification orders. Now, there's two different applications here, so they're going to intertwined and what have you. So when it does come to speakers, they're going to speak on both applications. That way, it's the simplest way forward. So, it's Phil, when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Phil Champion. I'm one of the Council's definitive map officers. Excuse me a second, I'll just set that running properly. The remit of the definitive map officers is to manage the legal record of public rights of way known as the definitive map and statement. That's held under section 53 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. This includes the investigation of formal applications for definitive map modification orders. The agenda item is not a planning application, but is determination of two separate but related applications for definitive map modification orders, or DMMOs, made under section 53(5) of the 1981 Act. These relate to route between Wilshaw Road at Wilshaw and Woodnook Lane at Woodnook. at Meltham. We have a duty under Schedule 14 of the 1981 Act to investigate the matters stated in an application and to decide whether or not to make an order to which the application relates. We've also got a standalone duty to keep the map and statement under continuous review and by order make such modifications as appear to be requisite. Application 1 is for an order to upgrade from footpath to bridleway the recorded status of paths Meltham 70 and Meltham 38, or part of Meltham 38, between Wilshaw Road and Woodnook. Meltham 38 is currently shown on the definitive map terminating slightly short of Woodnook Lane. So this application is understood to also include a request for the addition to the definitive map of a length of bridleway near Woodnook House. This route is described in the report as Route 1. The updated map you will have had with the update includes the correct labelling. The version that was included with the original report has Route 1 mislabelled as Route 3, so I do apologise. Application 2 is for an order to vary the particulars for footpath Meltham 70 that are contained in the statement that accompanies the definitive map to record as limitations a squeeze style 45 centimetres wide next to a locked gate. And that's at point A1 as shown on the plan on screen at the moment. There are currently no limitations or conditions such as gates or styles recorded in the statement for Meltham 70. It's claimed that structures already existed at the time a public right-of-way was dedicated or before the relevant date of the first definitive map, which is 22nd of September 1952, and that dedication of a public right-of-way was subject to the existence of those structures. Section 53 of the 1981 Act describes various events that would trigger that duty to make an order to modify the map and statement. Those are included in more detail at paragraph 2.25 in the report. The events that are most relevant to these applications are, at 3B, the expiration of any period such that the enjoyment by the public of the way during that period raises a presumption that the way has been dedicated as a public path or restricted byway, and the discovery of evidence, when considered with all other available evidence. Excuse me. My page is in the wrong order. Yes, that a right-of-way which is not shown in the map and statement subsists or is reasonably alleged to subsist, being a public path, restricted byway or byway open to all traffic. Also, that's 2, that's a highway shown in the map and statement as a highway of a particular description, such as a footpath, ought there to be shown as a highway of a different description. And also, the discovery by the authority of evidence which shows that any other particulars contained in the map and statement require modification. And this is of relevance to application 2. Section 31 of the Highways Act 1980 provides that where a way over land, other than a way of such character that use of it by the public could not give rise at common law to any presumption of dedication, has actually been enjoyed by the public as of right and without interruption for a full period of 20 years, the way is deemed to have been dedicated a highway unless there is sufficient evidence that there was no intention during that period to dedicate it. Application 1 is supported in part by evidence of use up to 2015. This has been assessed against the tests in section 31. The 20-year period for the purposes of section 31 is calculated retrospectively from the date that any public right-of-way was brought into question. For application 1, this is considered to be August 2015, making the 20-year period August 1995 to August 2015. And where there is deemed dedication under section 31, an order will be made under Section 53 2B of the 1981 Act. Members must consider whether or not the evidence shows, on balance of probabilities, that the public bridleway has come into existence over a route between Wilshaw Road, point A, and Woodnock Lane, point D, including Meltham 70 and part of Meltham 38, and any part of that route not currently shown on the definitive map. This may be through presumed dedication under Section 31 or dedication of a public right-of-way at common law. If members find the evidence insufficient to show that there's been a way has been dedicated as a public bridleway, they may also consider whether there's a reasonable allegation that a public footpath has come into existence over the route between points C and D near Woodnock House, by the part that's not currently recorded on the definitive map at all. Members must also consider whether or not the particulars for path Meltham 70 in the statement should be varied to include as limitations a squeeze stile 45 centimetres wide next to a lock gate at point 1, or, if not, whether any other limitations or conditions should be recorded. If members decide that an order should be made to upgrade to and add a bridleway, they should also make a decision on the stance to be taken regarding confirmation if the order is opposed. The routes are shown in detail in the photographs that are contained with the report. The photographs of Route 1, which is the main route we're talking about, show an enclosed track followed by Meltham 70 running in a generally northerly direction from Wilshaw Road at point A. This meets Meltham 38 near the ruins of a farm known as Lower Coat at point B. Meltham 38 then runs in a generally northeasterly direction along an enclosed track towards point C near Woodnock House. The route then continues through a garden area in front of the house to reach Woodnock Lane at point D, where there is a signpost indicating a public footpath. The statement accompanying the definitive map describes footpath Meltham 38 terminating at Woodnock Lane, although on the definitive map itself it stops short at point C. Photographs of two other routes, which we're calling routes 2 and 3, are also included in Appendix B to the report. These are routes near Manor Farm and Manor House at the hamlet of Lower Grieve. Some equestrians claim to have used those routes. However, the evidence is considered insufficient for an order to be made to record either Route 2 or 3 on the definitive map, and so those routes are not considered further. Application 1 was received in January 2016 from the Kirklees Bridleways Group and British Horse Society. The making of that application was prompted by a resident at Woodnock House on Woodnock Lane challenging equestrians in August 2015. That action is considered to have brought public rights of way into question. The application was supported by completed user evidence forms and various documentary evidence. Following the making of Application 1, the owners of land crossed by Meltham 70 erected and locked a gate on Meltham 70 at point A1, leaving a narrow gap to one side. This prevented further use of the way by equestrians. The Council commenced enforcement action regarding unauthorised structures on Meltham 70. This led to the making of Application 2 to record structures as limitations. Application 2 was accompanied by a number of items of documentary evidence and a report from the applicant's agent. Material previously supplied by solicitors acting for the company which owns the land crossed by the affected part of Meltham 70 was also taken into consideration, along with other available documentary evidence and user evidence received in support of Application 1, and also responses received following consultations. Regarding the evidence, Application 1 is principally supported by user evidence statement forms or letters and emails from 64 individuals who claim to have personally used the route from A through to D over various periods up to 2016. The claimed frequency of use varies from very occasional through to daily use. 61 people claimed equestrian use. 29 people indicated use of the way on foot, 6 by bicycle. One person described use with a vehicle in the early 1950s. The earliest claimed use was 1942 on foot. claimed equestrian use increased from the early 1980s. Application 1 was also accompanied by various documentary evidence, principally historical map evidence, documents relating to valuation of land under the Finance Act 1910, certain documents relating to the development of the definitive map and statement in the 1950s, and also an extract from a published history of the Wiltshire area. There was also some photographic evidence. The Council has also considered further documentary evidence available to it. This includes other historic map evidence, other documents relating to the development and review of the definitive map and statement, other documents contained in its own files that refer to the routes in question. All available photographs have also been considered. This evidence is found in Appendix E to the report, along with other documentary evidence considered by officers. The documentary and user evidence is considered in detail in the comprehensive discussion of evidence found at item 1 in Appendix A to the report. Appendix A also includes summaries of various aspects of the evidence. While the documentary evidence is of assistance in various ways, including in establishing when various parts of the route are likely to have come into existence, it is not considered conclusive of public bridleway status. However, the user evidence is considered sufficient to show, on balance, that there has been deemed dedication of a public bridleway under Section 31. The evidence provided in support of Application 2 is included in Appendix I to the report, and analysis provided in the detailed discussion of evidence. Analysis is also provided of various material and provided by and assertions made by the landowner's solicitors. This includes letters from people claiming knowledge of the way from the 1930s onwards. Any particulars contained in the statement accompanying the definitive map as to limitations or conditions affecting a public right-of-way would be conclusive evidence that the said right was subject to those limitations or conditions, but without prejudice to the question of whether the right-of-way was subject to any other limitations or conditions. Application 2 seeks to add to the record such limitations or conditions. In the case of Melfin 70, no limitations are currently recorded. For the particulars to be modified to record additional limitations, it would be necessary to show that the public right-of-way had been dedicated subject to those limitations or conditions, and there has not been subsequent rededication without conditions. Essentially, it would be necessary to show unrecorded limitations or conditions existed at the relevant date of the first definitive map and statement at the very least. And it was recorded without limitations and conditions in 1952. The actual date of coming into existence of a public right-of-way may have been many decades earlier, perhaps as early as the 1870s. Although limited statements and assertions have been made regarding the existence of structures at point A1 at various times, there is insufficient evidence to show, on balance of probabilities, that limitations existed in 1952. Any structures subsequently erected would not be limitations or conditions on the public right-of-way, and there is no evidence of formal authorisation of any such structures. There is limited evidence of a gate or gates of it having once existed at point A in the form of a surviving gatepost. The point A is immediately at the roadside on Wiltshire Road, not point A1, which is set some distance back from that. There is a surviving gatepost and a solid line which is shown on various Ordnance Survey maps, although any gates in that location are considered likely to have been removed well before 1952. While there is some evidence of a gate or gates at point A1 as late as the 1990s, the preponderance of the user evidence submitted in connection with application 1 indicates there was no gate at point A1 during the relevant 20-year period to be considered under section 31 of the Highways Act 1980, or if a gate had been present during part of that period, it had not been locked. Even if it could be shown that there had been an unrecorded limitation of a gate or gates or indeed a gap alongside on Meltham 70 as per application 2. The user evidence suggests that there would have subsequently been dedication of a bridleway absent of any limitation. Nor does the evidence suggest that gates or other structures should be recorded as limitations elsewhere on the routes in question. So in conclusion, having considered all the available evidence, it's considered there is ample evidence of public use by equestrians as of right, so without force, secrecy or permission, during the 20-year period 1995 to 2015, to raise a presumption of dedication of a public bridleway over the route from Wilshire Road to Woodnock Lane. There is no clear evidence that any landowner demonstrated a lack of intention to dedicate a public bridleway. While assertions have been made that some equestrian use was with permission and that there may have been interruptions to use, this is not supported by the evidence as a whole. There was sufficient evidence of use by equestrians during the 20-year period to raise that presumption, and no clear evidence that in that period that any landowner demonstrated a lack of intention to dedicate. There is also ample evidence of pedestrian use, including use of the part of the route near Woodnock House that is not currently recorded on the definitive map, and use of a greater width than is currently recorded for footpaths Meltham 70 and 38, which are both currently recorded at approximately 1.2 metres wide. There is also evidence of public use as of right over a longer period from which dedication under common law may be inferred. It's considered the evidence shows a public bridleway actually subsists on balance of probabilities along the whole route between Wilshire Road and Woodnock Lane. It's considered that an order should be made to upgrade the recorded status of Meltham 70 and 38 from footpath to bridleway and add a bridleway connecting Meltham 38 to Woodnock Lane. The Council should also support confirmation of an order. Any order should not vary the recorded particulars of Meltham 70 to include any limitations. And the recommendations are found at paragraphs 2.440 and 2.41 in the report. And which recommends choosing options described at paragraphs 2.34 and 2.36 in the report. So, in relation to application 1, it's recommended that members authorise the making of an order to modify the definitive map and statement, to upgrade the recorded status of Meltham 70 and Meltham 38, or part of Meltham 38, between points A and C, from footpath to bridleway, and to add a bridleway from point C to Woodnock Lane at point D. That's as paragraph 2.34 in the report. And in relation to application 2, it's recommended that members refuse the application and decide that the Council should not make any order. That's as per paragraph 2.36 in the report. And an order should not vary the particulars recorded in the map and statement to record a limitation of any structures at point A1 on Meltham 70, as had been requested in application 2, nor elsewhere. It is further recommended that an order to upgrade, if an order is made to upgrade or add a bridleway, and that order be opposed, and the matter referred to the Secretary of State, the Council should actively support the confirmation of the order at any public inquiry or hearing. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Phil. Should have that last section when you've just read out, ready for when we go to a vote. Who are you? Right, we've got 3 speakers. First speaker is Andy Dunlop. What I'm going to do, because it's 2 applications and they're both intertwined, rather than having 3 minutes on each application, I'll give you 6 minutes and get on with it, kind of thing. Then you don't lose your thread.
Good afternoon, councillors. I submitted a paper this morning to Sheila, but it's not been circulated because that's not proper. But I'm going to read from it, and there's a copy of this with Sheila, should you wish to consider it later. Before the committee today, you have 2 applications that directly oppose each other. One, to record the definitive map statement a reference to a lot gate and a pedestrian bypass close to the southern end of the route in question, and 2, to upgrade the whole of the public footpath to bridleway. These applications are both supported by witness statements which support each application and oppose the other. Before I go into details, I should first like to say that we agree wholeheartedly with the officer's historic evaluations of the route. However, there are omissions from the report relating to the modern use that make it difficult, if not impossible, for elected members to reach an impartial decision. Whilst the officer's report dismisses our witness statements, it does not treat the opposition's claimed user evidence in the same manner. No attempt has been made to validate the claimed users. Indeed, the user evidence forms are not even in the bundle presented, and we've not been permitted to see them either. We would add that the gate that the horse riders deny existed in the past appears on every map produced by the Ordnance Survey and even on the authority's own definitive map. As such, it is not possible for us or you to evaluate user evidence as to A, how truthful they are. The Bridleway Group has previously been exposed for putting in untruthful witness statements. I'm referring here to the Nethermoor route. And B, how many were actually making use of the route with permission granted by the owners, as the horse riders originated from the neighbouring riding school and livery, which had permission to use the route. You are advised by the report that our application should be rejected. If you do, we will appeal to the Secretary of State. It is highly likely he will allow our appeal so our witnesses can be tested. This would lead to a public inquiry. You are advised that the Bridleway application should be granted, in which case we will object and force a public inquiry. We make the following 3 suggestions. 1. Adjourn the decision so elected members can review the claimed user and objector's statement in full. Or 2. Make both orders, but the Council take a neutral stance. Let both parties run their own arguments against the other's claims. Both sides get a hearing in front of an independent arbiter and the Council's costs are reduced significantly. Or 3. The landowners have no real issue with bridle use over the majority of the route. Excessive use and mistreatment of part of it, though, caused a public nuisance and they were forced to curtail use. The curtailing by the withdrawal of permission leads us here today. There will shortly be coming into force legislation enacted in 2015 to remove public rights of way from private gardens by either stopping up or diversion. We've already had preliminary talks with your officers over the diversion of the footpath away from Woodnook's Kirklees. We'll go further and offer a new route along a path to the north of the stream through ancient woodland to meet the road about 100 yards east of the footpath's current exit. The owners would dedicate the new route and part of the footpath leading to the southern end as a bridleway. They would remove the locks and allow free access. If this option is taken, it would resolve the matter in a few months and without massive costs being borne by the ratepayers of Kirklees undertaking at least 2 public inquiries. I'm happy to take questions.
Mark Corrigan.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Mark Corrigan. I'm a resident of Meltham and have been for over 40 years. I'm employed by the British Horse Society as an access field officer for Yorkshire. I am the current chairman of Kirklees Bridleways Group and a committee member of the National Federation of Bridleways. I'm associate member of the professional organisation, the Institute of Public Rights of Way. I'm the applicant for the definitive map modification order. The law requires only that on the balance of probabilities, is it more likely than not that highway rights exist. There is not only historical evidence proving that this lane has been used by the public for over 100 years, there is also modern day user evidence submitted by many horse riders who've used this lane for many years, myself included. National statistics show us that there are 22% of public rights of way recorded as bridleways. Kirklees has a mere 8%, one of the lowest in the country. This is due in part to many footpaths being incorrectly recorded. This footpath is an incorrectly recorded highway. There are currently 883 passport-registered horses in the local area. That's the HD9 area. This equates to an annual contribution by horse riders into the local economy of £6,081,221. Bridleways are essential for horse riders. Kirklees Bridleways Group has been in existence since 1988. Some of its members were riding along this lane before then. I accept the recommendations of the officer's report that this footpath should be upgraded and recorded as a bridleway, and would urge the committee to follow its recommendations. The British Horse Society is the largest equestrian charity in the country. One of its charitable objectives is safety and to promote safe off-road riding. Confirming this application will contribute to a much-needed public facility for all users. While safety objections cannot legally be a reason not to, or indeed to confirm the order, safety is a reason to get horse riders off the roads. Nationally, since the 1st of January 2023, incidents involving horse riders are 2,402 road incidents, 1 human fatality, 61 humans injured, 35 horse fatalities and 72 horses injured. These statistics are shocking and highlight the importance of safe off-road riding. The British Horse Society support the officer recommendations. I urge you to confirm that particular order. In respect of the application to vary the particulars of footpath Meltham 70 to record limitations of a lock gate and squeeze style, I've used this lane many times, both on foot and as a horse rider, over a 40-year period. I've never encountered the limitations described in this application until they were installed in 2016. During my research into the history of Wilshaw and this lane, I concluded that there had never been these limitations. It is quite possible that the reason this route is incorrectly recorded is that the surveyors believed it to be a road originally, in which case it would not have needed to be recorded. Whether the status of the route is correctly recorded or not, any limitations would have had to have been listed. The fact that they were not indicates that they were not present at the time, and I therefore ask that you support the officer recommendation and refuse the application to record a locked gate and squeeze style. Thank you.
Final speaker is Andy Leader.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Andy Leader from Pecan Northern Footpath Society. We're here to ask you to support the officer recommendation to upgrade these footpaths to bridleway status and for Kirklees Council to actively seek confirmation of the order should it be opposed. So we'd ask the committee please to vote in favour of the officer recommendation. The report shows generous user evidence which is more than enough to prove the existence of bridleway rights. I'd like to add an additional perspective to that evidence today. I worked for Kirklees Rights of Way in the 1990s and visited the section of Meltham Footpath 38 by the woodland at Woodnook House, following complaints from walkers of damage by equestrian use. The section of path was heavily cut up by horses. I spoke to the property owner regarding the possibility of Kirklees repairing the damage and then erecting barriers to stop use by horses. This would be about 1997. The owner was very clear that use by public on horses was not a problem for them and that they did not wish to stop it. I was told that the white metal entrance gate to the property was left partly open to assist riders coming through the property. It seemed clear to me at that time that bridleway use was already accepted then in the late 1990s. The second application to vary particulars. Again, Pecan Northern Footpath Society support the officer recommendation to refuse this application to vary particulars, and we would ask that the committee vote in favour of the officer recommendation. The report shows no evidence to support the claim of a lock gate and narrow squeeze style on Meltham 70. I've known this path since 1993, and as mentioned, worked for Kirklees Rights of Way in the 1990s. There was never any structure on Meltham 70 until 2015 when a metal T structure appeared. The locked gate and squeeze style only appeared later in response to the bridleway claim. I visited Meltham 70 in the 1990s as a council officer to post notices on site relating to a footpath diversion on Meltham Footpath 40 at Manor Farm. I also visited on numerous occasions in relation to problems of obstruction of footpath 40 at Manor Farm. I accessed the site by driving along Meltham 70. There was no barrier or locked gate across the path as claimed. Our public rights-of-way rangers and contractors carried out annual works to trim Meltham footpaths 40 and 53, which are in the area. They accessed the sites by driving on Meltham 70, as it was always open and available for our access. In the mid-1990s, we had 2 human geography students on placement with us, and they worked on a project photographing public paths. One of the photos is in the report in Appendix E, and it's taken from Wilshaw Road. It shows the start of Meltham 70. There is clearly no gate or squeeze style of any kind. This is my experience of the site between 1993 and 2015. Thank you.
Do you want to come in, Phil, clear one or two bits up?
Perhaps I should come back on a few points that Mr Dunlop raised. He sort of questioned issues to do with the user evidence not being considered in the same way as the witness evidence submitted in relation to his client's application. I would say that analysis of the user evidence against the required tests is provided in the detailed discussion of evidence accompanying the report. And analysis of the witness evidence provided in connection with application 2 is analysed paragraph 2.82 in the report. It so happens that officers find in favour of the case being put forward in relation to one application but not the other. It need not be a case that we accept both or none. The user evidence forms are not included with the report, and that's our standard practice, but neither are the letters submitted providing evidence in support of application 2. And we provide the evidence in summary form with an analysis provided in the documents with the report. And the omission of the user evidence forms at this stage is in line, in the public report at this stage, is in line with the first tier tribunal decision involving Lincolnshire County Council and the Information Commissioner. If an order is made, there will be a formal opportunity in the following 6 weeks to view all the evidence on which the order is based, and that would include the user evidence forms, apart from the personal contact details and names and full addresses. With regard the Mr Dunlop refers to the possibility of the appealing against the refusal to make application an order in relation to application 2. That's quite correct. That of course might result in the council being directed to make an order. If the Secretary of State or their appointed inspector doesn't agree with the council's decision, or an appeal may be rejected, and the decision of members today must not be influenced by this. Further, if an order is made in relation to application 1 or indeed application 2, anyone can make a representation or objection to that order. If then we don't have an order that we can confirm because it's unopposed, we'll refer that to the Secretary of State, and there may be a public inquiry. That's fairly standard in these cases. And again, you shouldn't take that into consideration when making the decision. Decisions should be based on analysis and consideration of the evidence that's put forward. I think that's everything I have.
Right, members. Yeah.
Just for clarity, members, I think we should take a vote on each application separately. So if you can just bear that in mind when you're moving and seconding. Thank you.
Moses.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to clarify one point. So, sorry, the first speaker was Mr. Dunlop. Yeah, had suggested that they might be willing to consider an alternative route, and I wanted to question whether that was something we were even able to consider, because my understanding is that we're empowered here to make a judgment, or rather we're asked to make a judgment on whether a right-of-way already exists, not on whether we'd like to designate a right-of-way via an alternative route or something along those lines. So without stating a preference for an alternative route at all, I just wanted to clarify whether that was something we were even able to consider.
Yes, we have a statutory duty to determine the applications that are in front of us. We have had discussions with Mr. Dunlop about possible diversion routes. I'm happy to continue those discussions. That shouldn't interfere with the process we're looking at today, and we do have to determine these applications. In fact, we have a direction from the Secretary of State to determine the application for the bridleway upgrade, which the date for which has long since passed, and we must do without further delay.
I'm happy to propose that we accept the officer recommendations on this, on application 1.
Application 1, yeah. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pinnock. We'll go to a vote on item 1.
So just to be clear, you're voting that officers be authorised to make a definitive map modification order under section 53(2) of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 to upgrade the recorded status of Meltham 70 and part of Meltham 38 as shown on the plan that was circulated with the planning update and shown at the meeting from footpath to bridleway, and add to the definitive map a public bridleway between the currently recorded termination point of Meltham 38 and Woodnup Lane, also shown on the plan, and that should an order be made and opposed, the matter be referred to the Secretary of State, the Council should actively support the confirmation of the order at any public inquiry or hearing. Excuse me. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Crook?
For.
Councillor Patterson? For. Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Hall?
For.
That's carried, Chair, unanimous.
Right. Now to the second part. So we need a mover and a seconder again.
I mean, I'm happy to move officer recommendation for the second application as well.
I second it, Mr. Chair.
Right, so that's moved and seconded. Yeah.
So this vote is in respect of the application for an order to vary the particulars recorded in the map and the statement in respect of part of footpath Meltham 70 to record as limitations a squeeze style 45 centimetres wide next to a lock gate be refused. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Crook?
For.
Councillor Pattison?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Hall?
For.
That's carried, Chair, unanimous.
Right, that's it. Thank you for your attendance today, and I'll see you next month.
Goodness.